Hi, everybody, and welcome back. We are going to go through two theories today. I often present them in tandem, as do most professors. They are routine activities theory by Cohen and Felsen, which was authored in 1979. And there's rational choice theory by Cornish and Clark, which was authored in 1987. The reason I present the both of them together is that these are two very practically applied theories. And out of all the theories that I'm going to present to you, these are the law enforcement are the biggest fans of these two because they are so very hands-on. They are so very tangible. Law enforcement tends to really be drawn to routine activities theory and their policy implications, and the same thing with rational choice. They're very simplistic and straightforward, so let's begin. So Cohen and Felsen wrote this in 1979, routine activities theory. It's often abbreviated literally as RAT, R-A-T. And it's a very practical outlook to crime that came of age during a time when there was a really heavy emphasis on victimology and ecological prevention of crime. Now, that sounds like a mouthful. It sounds kind of intimidating. It's really not. Ecological prevention of crime is simply looking at the environment in which you live, in which crime occurs, and saying, what can we do to manipulate the environment so that crime can be prevented and or minimized? That's all that's saying there. I know it sounds a little intimidating. But this theory asserts that the bulk of crime is literally related to people's everyday natural patterns, habits, social interactions, and just generally the execution of our lives, right? So what is a routine activity? Let's define that. So a routine activity, according to Cohen and Felsen, is any commonly occurring social activity that provides for an individual's needs. So this could be anything from going to work, going to the grocery store, going to the gas station, going to see a family member, child rearing, going out to eat, leisure activities, anything that you do, and certainly anything that you do with repetition, which most of our lives is full of repetition, right? The places that we go to are often the same time and time and time again, repeatedly. Those are our routine activities. It's something that you engage in, that you do with regularity. It becomes routine. I often like to liken routine activities theory to a very simple math equation. There are three elements or postulates to this theory. You must have all three present in order for crime to happen. If any one of those three postulates are missing or absent, crime cannot occur. So you must have all of these, and they must all converge in time and space. So we get back to that ecological issue, that geographic issue. They must all happen at the same time in the same location in order for crime to happen. So of the three, the first is a motivated offender. If you don't have somebody who's motivated to break the law, you don't have crime, right? This is a recipe for crime, a 3-ingredient recipe. You must have somebody who's motivated to break the law. Number two is a suitable target. Now, this is a very, very broad term, suitable target, right? And the target is the victim of crime. And this target can come in many forms. It can be human. It can be an inanimate object. It's a target that is vulnerable to becoming victimized. Something that has value, right? A car, technology, phones, iPads, tablets, whatever. A person, right? Whether it's, kidnapping a person, sexually assaulting a person, something that to that motivated offender appears to be a suitable target, has value to that offender in the offender's eyes. And finally, the third piece of the equation or recipe is an absence of capable guardians. They all have to come together in time and space. So what's an absence of a capable guardian? That means nobody is here to prevent you from doing the crime. And capable guardians can come in many shapes and forms as well. I mean, obviously police are capable guardians, right? But so are many other things, such as just simply being home, right? If I'm home and a burglar knows I'm home, they're not going to burglarize my house. They'd rather go to a house that's empty. A security system. It's easier to break into a house without a security system than one with. Dogs, right? Dogs are loud when strangers come into the house. They bark. They are natural alarms, right? That they can be scary and aggressive to strangers who are coming into their home unwelcome. That is a suitable guardian. So you need all three things to come together. Somebody who's willing to commit crime, that motivated offender, a suitable target, which is going to vary from offender to offender, what they define as suitable, and an absence of a capable guardian, meaning that target, that suitable target, is literally left unprotected. Right? If those three things come together at the same time in the same geographic locale, according to Cohen and Felsen, you will have crime. That is when crime comes together. Again, if one of these three elements of the theory is missing, according to Cohen and Felsen, crime can't happen. If all three of these are present in the same time and place, it doesn't guarantee that crime will happen, but the odds that a crime will happen increase dramatically. The possibility of crime goes up. And specifically speaking, Cohen and Felsen wrote this in 1979, and we're going to get to the social context here, that as routine activities change socially, so too will crime. So what happened, or what were they sort of looking at in the late 70s? Well, you had the feminist movement, and you had a massive amount of women entering the workforce who had never been there before. This is going to dramatically change routine activities, right? Now women are commuting to work. Women are away from the home. Homes no longer have suitable guardians because both people are in the workplace. Women and men in general, they're out of the house more. They're both working. They're more likely to come across a suitable opportunity for crime, right? So these things, these changes in the way we function are going to change our routine activities, which therefore is going to impact crime, according to Cohen and Felsen. It will be interesting down the road to see how the massive change in routine activities from the COVID pandemic, or we shut down the entire country, right? We changed everybody's routine activities, how that will impact crime, or how it did impact crime during the shutdown. Did we see a decrease? Did we see an increase? What did we see, right? Because certainly everybody's routine activities were vastly interrupted and changed. The next theory that we're going to discuss is called rational choice theory, and this is by Cornish and Clark in 1987. And there are some classical school influences here because we're going to look again at rational decision making. So the first thing Cornish and Clark argue is that offenders are motivated to meet their needs, whether that need is I'm hungry, I need money, I need shelter, I need a car, whatever that need is, you are motivated to meet that need. Much like Caesar Beccaria and the classical school, they bring in the issue of rationality. And rationality, as defined by Cornish and Clark, is the decision-making process that is involved in meeting your individual needs. And again, we're looking at that cost-benefit analysis, right? They don't refer to it as hedonistic calculus in the way that Caesar Beccaria referenced Jeremy Bentham, but they do reference the cost-benefit analysis, determining the potential benefits of an action versus the potential cost of an action. They make a really good point here, and that's that rationality is limited by the amount of accurate information you have at the time. Certainly, not everybody has every piece of information in the world at once. So only the amount of information that you have can drive your rational decision making, right? If you are missing pieces of the puzzle or you're missing information, your decision is going to be rational based on the information you had, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a complete decision because maybe you don't have all of the pieces of the information. So they argue in their theory that there are two areas or two different areas of decision making that have to occur. If somebody engages in both areas of decision making, crime will occur. We start with the involvement decision, and that is a decision about whether or not to get involved in crime. Do you engage in the crime, or when faced with the opportunity, do you desist and leave? These decisions are once again going to get back to that cost benefit, that rational decision making. Am I going to get involved? Is there enough benefit for me to get involved? Is the cost too high for me to get involved? So here's the interesting part, according to their theory. If you determine that the cost is too high, that's it. It's game over. You will never get to the next step of decision making because you've already said the costs are too high. I'm not going to do this. But on the other hand, if you say the benefits are high enough that I'm willing to do this, you have decided to involve yourself in the crime. You have passed the involvement decision. If you have made the decision to get involved and you've passed the involvement decision, you're going to move on next to the event decision. And the event decision is once you've decided to engage in crime, now you have to determine how am I actually going to execute this crime. You need to figure out the tactics, the logistics of carrying out all the steps required in order for you to complete the crime. Will you decide I'm going to get into the event? And that's going to be determined once again by rational decision making. You will evaluate the tactics, the logistics required to be involved in the crime. If the tactics are easy, if they're doable, you're going to be involved in the event decision. So if you make the involvement decision, yes, I'm going to get involved. If you make the event decision, yes, I can commit this crime with the following tactics, crime will happen. But if you don't make the involvement decision, you say, oh, there's too much risk, I'm not doing it, no crime. Let's say you say, oh, lots of benefit, I'm going to try. But then you get to the event decision and you're like, I'd love to steal this car, but there's a police officer right there. Oh, look, here comes the owner of the car. And all of a sudden the tactics get really difficult or really painful or really out of reach. You're going to decide against getting involved in the event decision. So there's 2 points of turning back. If you decide from crime, according to rational choice theory with Cornish and Clark, if you decide, hey, there's too much pain or potential consequence involved, so I'm not going to get involved, there's no crime. But you could still decide, like I said, oh no, there's good benefit here. I'm gonna involve myself in crime. Okay, what about the event? How do I execute the event? And then you're going to evaluate a different set of rational decisions. Is it easy enough for me to do? Is it safe enough? Is it really hard? Am I likely to get caught? And you're going to decide, should I be involved in the event decision? If you say, no, this is too hard, crime doesn't happen. But if you say yes to both the involvement decision and the event decision, crime occurs. Now, there's another reason I present both of these theories together, and it's because the policy implications are largely the same, whether it's rational decision making or rational choice theory, excuse me, or routine activities theory. What we look to do as a policy that comes from both of these theoretical explanations is to target harden, and target hardening simply means that we take the potential target of crime and we make it harder for it to be victimized. Whether it's a person, whether it's a car, whether it's a house, we literally make it more difficult to victimize anybody or anything in that situation. What are examples of target hardening? I mean, some of them are really simple, right? I gave you examples previously, putting a dog in a house, right? Well, that makes it harder to burglarize, especially if the dog doesn't like you and gets aggressive. Putting security systems up, you're target hardening. I would rather burglarize a house that doesn't have a security system versus one that does. There's all sorts of things you can do to target harden your house. You can put, bright lights out front. You can put motion sensors. You can put in deadbolts, which are delaying devices. All of these things make it harder to engage in burglarizing or robbing a home or breaking in and engaging in a home invasion and physically harming somebody. These are target hardening events. There is a specific area that I want to draw your attention to that we call crime prevention through environmental design, and that is abbreviated as CPTED. We pronounce that CPTED. Okay, CPTED's been around for a good long while, and once again, we get back at looking at the environment. Okay, we get back at looking at the ecology, and what we do is we say, okay, how can we manipulate this environment to minimize the event decision or to minimize the convergence of the motivated offender, the suitable target, and the lack of a capable guardian? Well, we do that by target hardening, right? So if we see an area that's engaging in a lot of crime, one of the ways we target harden where there's an area where just crime keeps happening, well, here's one way to target harden. We put more officers in that locale. Right? If there are more officers available and around, we have just made it a harder target. We have put more capable guardians down. We've made the event decision more difficult, which prevents crime. Okay, so ultimately what you want to do here with target hardening is decrease the attractiveness and the ease of specific crimes and victimization.